You know, maybe the real cordyceps was all the friends Joel killed along the way.
Yeah, 100%.
It's too hard to say. But
That's
I say
a
it.
hard word to say. Like, you know what cordyceps sound like? A medicine.
Well, yeah, it's a medicine. For murder! We've finished The Last of Us, the show. JD has never played the video game,
Nope.
but I did, so we have both perspectives for you.
Now listen, I own the video game. I bought it. I got it with a PlayStation.
Right.
Haven't played it. Always thought about it. Really looked at it during the pandemic, but I thought maybe not the best game to play.
Even when the sequel came out, you still didn't play it.
Nope.
Crazy ending, just like the video game. Right off the bat, this is going to be all spoilers. So if you've not seen the show and you plan to watch it, stop watching our review now.
Yeah. Don't.
But first, we're going to talk about Joel, and then we'll get into some other stuff. We're not going to talk about the decision he made at the end of the show right now, but we will in a little bit.
We've decided to wait.
Yes, to make our choice. Joel obviously is played by Pedro Pascal.
Yeah.
And he plays it entirely different from all his other dead characters, which is just Mando.
Of course, we all love him in Mando when he does show up because a lot of it's just voice work. But it was nice to see Pedro fully Pedro.
The way he carried Joel was entirely different from the video game Joel. And a lot of the people online have described him as the part 2 version of Joel, just put into part 1.
Okay.
And so he's much more subdued here. He's got more emotion. In the game, he is much more just hard-headed and just doing things because that's the way Joel does them.
Okay.
In this, he actually kind of listens to Ellie a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I think you had to have that for a wider audience, an audience who's not going to pick up a PlayStation controller. I think you have to.
Yeah.
Especially you're spending so much time with him. Did you like that element changed, or would you have preferred to see a little bit more crusty Joel?
I would have liked to see him a little harder, a little more hardened up in the beginning of the relationship, because obviously they have that moment where he's like, Tommy's going to take you. And that's the only time we really see the video game version of Joel. But I think I prefer this for TV because it feels, well, it's hard because I played the game 10 years ago, obviously, before I was a dad. And now as I play it as a dad, I've obviously softened up a little bit too.
This is, we both have a different also kind of perspective on the show, is that we both have daughters.
Yeah. So we have a lot to talk about when it comes to the choice.
Yeah.
I used to be a little bit hardened like Joel back in the day, where I just was sort of nihilistic about life. But now obviously I have a daughter to take care of, and I'm like, well, I can't be grumpy all the time.
Yeah.
I can't be grumpy when she's saying fart jokes.
Who could? Yeah. Now, so the way that plays out, do you kind of know his backstory from the beginning? Is that kind of the opening matches the opening?
Yeah.
Okay.
So you know that his daughter has died. You don't really know that he tried to commit suicide in the game. It's hinted at. It's not really over the head where he sits down and tells Ellie. Yeah. He's basically just things happen.
Yeah.
He shot first and he missed, yada, yada. But so I really like that they went into Joel a little bit more and made him sympathetic in a different way. Because in the video game, he's obviously cold, callous killer.
Yeah.
This, he's cold, callous killer, but with an emo heart that he doesn't really want people to know about.
That's true.
So,
and he kind of does it because he has to. It seems like maybe there were other people he let in this version, and things happen, and so he's really had to kind of be I gotta shut off.
Yeah. Yeah. Tess, obviously.
Tess.
Rest in peace, Tess.
I think also knowing, we'll talk about later, the future, it also makes it really hard. Because I kind of know what happens in the game.
Yeah.
we can talk about it later, but they've really set it up to be you really like this guy. So
now let's talk about Ellie, played by Bella Ramsey. And, at first a lot of people were like, well, she doesn't look like the video game version of Ellie. I didn't really care.
I mean, does Pedro Pascal look like...
No, he doesn't either.
No.
But, there's a lot of, criticism online about that. But I will say after about 2 episodes in, you're like, oh, this is Ellie. And she brings the same like exuberant, like childlike like wonder of the world while still being a dystopian apocalypse. So I think Bella really did a good job. And obviously by the time we get to like episode 8, you see the change from child Ellie to basically be born into an adult ahead of her wanting to be adult. So it's like, I think she was perfect for the role.
I guess they brought back the original Bella, the original Ellie,
yes.
the original Ellie voice actress to be her mom, and even that, like the way that she spoke, I'm like, they sound so much like. I don't really get why people were so freaked about it. I think that it really is like, again, not having played the game, like from what I've seen, it looks like she just kind of nails it.
Obviously, part 2 is going to be more Bella Ramsey focused, just because it has to be, which is getting split into 2 parts. So I mean, we'll talk about season 2 later. But now, let's talk about Joel's choice, because I feel like in the show it was better executed than it was in the game, and the reason for that is that in the game, if you're playing at certain difficulties, it's harder to get through that hospital scene. Because you're just like, you have to hide and shoot people and get everything. So you get separated from the emotional decision that he makes with deciding to save Ellie. So you're just like, when I was playing,
you're so focused on beating it.
I died like 10 times. And by the end I was like,
you're angry.
I won. And I think that's an intentional choice, obviously, to get you to side with Joel. But I think it was, in retrospect, a bad decision considering the backlash that part 2 got. Because of how closely connected everyone was with Joel. Whereas in this, you see that Ellie's consent was broken not only by Joel, but by the Fireflies as well. And that's something I actually touch on in my part 2 review, is like, there's no wrong answer, there's no right answer. All we know is that Ellie's consent was broken by 2 different groups of people. Obviously, the Fireflies, she never consented to being she never knew she was immune until she got bit, obviously. And then the Fireflies were like, we're going to send you off. And of course, Ellie was like, yeah, of course, I want to get out of Boston.
You bring it up, makes me think about it right now. It's like, that really is like a great counterpoint to this whole show that people were like, it's a zombie show, it's a zombie, or it's like a monster show. It's like, it's still that same old thing, like, well, who are the real monsters? The people. But even when you like separate, like, those people are monsters, but also we're all we all have a little monster in us of just like, we're selfish and what we want to do. Because you're right, it's like the same thing happened from 2 sides. And that, like, it kind of just adds that layer of like, the fungus people, they're really probably like, they're scary and they're gonna eat you, but like, way worse things could happen over here.
You can see both sides. You could see, obviously, Ellie wants to save the world. She wants her life to have more purpose than just dying to some cordyceps zombies. And Joel, on the same token, I mean, as a parent, I'm going to do whatever it takes to save my child. So, and he already lost his first child, so to have his surrogate child almost be lost again, you don't really fault him for this decision, even though you're just kind of like, Joel, you could have maybe, instead of turning into a mass shooter, you could have done something else. You could have figured out some kind of way.
I also, like, I don't know, thinking about it, I'm like, could they not just like do a little bit, like just cut a little bit out of the brain, you know, like, not saying like any part's great, but you know, it's like, there's got to be a way that you do this without just killing her, right?
But obviously he still kills the doctor, which is going to lead to some very big consequences. No spoilers for anybody that has not played the second game. I think the ending hit a lot better in the show. Maybe it's because I'm a dad. Maybe it's because I'm a parent, and I just feel the emotional weight a little bit more. Whereas when I was a younger dude, I was probably more like a little angrier.
Well, I think too, it also like plays with that parent idea of like, you lie to your kids, you lie to protect them, but how much of that is like gonna backfire?
And how much intruding on their consent is going to be a problem later on. I mean, obviously we have political ramifications of that currently happening in this world. So it's like, it's a very right now topic, and Ellie susses it out immediately. Whereas in the game, it's sort of left like, well, I don't know if she even knows. And then it touches it on the second games. Now we'll go into the adaptation part. This is more of a me thing.
Yeah.
So obviously I played the game, and my only real criticism is it felt like a speed run. It's just like they went through the game super quick.
Yeah. But we talked about this. It's not like you could just do a whole episode on like, we got to find some guns.
Yeah. Which they could, but then you run into the Walking Dead problem.
Yes.
That's why it went for so long, because they're always like, well, we got to get these supplies. We got to get this. And then they run into a new group, and then they're stuck on a farm, and then they're stuck in a prison.
But it did, like even someone who hasn't played, it did feel like, especially the last episode where you're like, well, this is 43 minutes? Like, cool, but like, it seems like we have just started this journey.
I think they overcorrected the Walking Dead problem.
Yeah.
Where they could have lingered on a couple of things at the end, obviously, like the dead bodies that Joel was racking up, but it really felt like it was just going too fast, and obviously they're splitting up the second game, thankfully. But there's just so much lore that is missed, and there's so many crazy action sequences that was missed. I'm sure now that it's a success, HBO is probably going to give it a bigger budget. Yeah. So I assume there's even crazier set pieces in the second game. Okay. So there's a whole religious cult in the second one. I know we got kind of a religious cult here, but this one is like full on.
Yeah. It's hard to compare something like this to like, like the Tomb Raider movies, or the Mortal Kombat movies, or the Super Mario, whenever it comes out. It's like, because it's given more time, I guess. But would you say like, adaptation wise, taking things out, leaving things in, speeding it up, slowing it down, like this is like maybe the best there's ever been, right?
I mean, at the end of the day, even though it felt like a speed run, it was definitely the best video game adaptation that could have been done for The Last of Us. Obviously, there was rumors that Sam Raimi was going to do something a long time ago, but that would not been in the spirit of The Last of Us.
I also think it's, this is not meant as like a criticism, but like I think it seems like it should be a pretty easy kind of like home run. You're not talking about like dudes that have like knife snakes that come out of their hands. You know, like you're talking about a premise that we've kind of seen done several times and done in different mediums as well. Yeah. You know, very Western feel. Love the music, by the way. It's kind of the same, right?
It's from some of it's from the game, so
it's a great soundtrack.
Yeah, it's good. So now season 2, we're going to talk just quickly about season 2 without spoiling anything. I know for the audience, right now they're having a discourse about Joel's choice and whether it was right or wrong. You're all wrong. There is no right or wrong. It's making you think. It's making you think. Next season 2, there's a moment that's going to make you think even more. This whole show is about like the cost of vengeance and the implications of vengeance and the emotional weight of how to carry that. So you're definitely going to see more of that season 2. They've promised more cordyceps zombies, more action, because the second game is just more of that. I mean, and there's some really, really great characters that I'm excited for everyone to see.
Do you think, I was kind of touched on, I remember during the pandemic, a big thing was like, let's take that, where you can play the guitar and play just a random song on it. What song do you think they choose for the guitar song?
I don't know. There's so many choices. Living on a Prayer.
Oh, we're halfway there.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I think that would be a fun little...
That would be good.
Cheeky nod.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just... I'm so excited for the world to see The Last of Us, because my little gamer group, we are Last of Us nerds. So it's like Last of Us and Uncharted. We're actually Naughty Dog nerds.
Yo, Naughty Dog nerds.
Crash Bandicoot. Justice for Crash Bandicoot.
HBO, please. I'm begging you. Give us the Crash Bandicoot show.
Neil Druckmann, he has really perfected the story of The Last of Us. Yeah. And he is telling, it's his story to tell. So like, even if at the end of the day, if you don't like what's happening, give him some grace. It's his story. A lot of people are liking it. Our newsroom is just giddy about this show.
Loves it.
Just loves it.
I had to tell him to be quiet yesterday so I could catch up.
But some people said they may not watch the next season because they've heard of what's coming.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a rough ride.
Man, I'm excited. Yeah. I love it. And I love to also shout out HBO for not just with this. It seems like they're clearly bent on like, it's gonna end when it ends, and maybe we do spinoffs later. But like when you look at things with like Succession or other shows that they were like, we're just gonna. This is kind of a complete thing. Yeah. Before we go, can we just get your best clicker, please?
I can't do that.
That's good. That's good.
All right, now I put you on the spot.
Oh, do I have to do it now?
Yeah. No, do your best. Do your best. Tommy realizing that he's actually in a communist commune.
We're not communists. This is bad.